Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I created the this page in my book. And basically this is the watercolor paper. So here's the front side, of which I did those reverse stamps with my mask on there. And basically on this side, I just started spritzing away with my inks. So we have a little bit of my pretty mixture of the spun sugar and the dried marigold. And so we have that on there. And now we're going to kind of dry it. While this is still a little wet, I'm going to use a Delusion stencil that I have, and we're going to use a little bit more of that black. And I'm kind of doing it rather random and not real specific because I want this to kind of just be a background image. Then you kind of take your kitchen roll, aka paper towels, and kind of run that over top of it, and it gives it this really cool muted background. I'm going to use a little bit of the Radiant Rain Shimmering Mist and just spray that on there too, and it just creates this beautiful, beautiful background. Once again, using my little kitchen roll and kind of dabbing that off of there, and then I'm going to dry it. Once again, pulling out my art journal, and I'm going to put the reverse stamp in here. Let's see, find a page. Oh, that looks good. So we're going to do a little bit on that side, and then a little bit on this side. And we'll just set that aside and let it dry. So what you end up with is kind of this watery watercolor smorgasbord in the background. So then what I did was I took some of the TPC stamps that came as part of the April add-on kit and lined them up on my acrylic block, just in a random order. And then taking archival ink, I am going to stamp on here around the edges with the archival ink. Okay, so there you have it. I've just randomly stamped around the edges. Now, another technique that I did on this page, as you can see here, is I used this stencil and I randomly placed it on here, and then I took my brayer and I brayered on some black gesso so that it just kind of shows up here and continues with this whole collage-y look of this page. So I'm going to take my palette knife and dip it into my bucket here of black gesso, and I'm going to kind of spread it out on my craft mat. And then I'm going to take my brayer and kind of cover my brayer with some black paint, a little bit goopy, but not too much. And then what I'm going to do is place my stencil over top of my page, and I'm not going to fill in the whole thing. I just want to fill in little pieces, parts of it. Pick up a little bit more ink. And you'd have to have it a little bit thicker or it's not going to get into the stencil. All right, I think I'm happy with that. And you lift it off of there, and then you end up with this really cool dark black stencil effect. So we'll do a little bit more. I'm going to do it up here because remembering that the bottom of this, I made a pocket and covered it. Ooh, that's going to be a mess. So there you have it. There is your watercolor page. Now in the kit, there are two different types of canvases in there. There's the resist canvas, which is kind of the white one. And if you hold it just right, you can see the resist that's on the canvas. And then the other one is just a natural canvas. Both of them, of course, are a natural fabric. So they're going to soak up the water and soak up the ink or soak up anything that you put into them. Now, one thing that you must remember is that what you do on one side of your canvas is going to show up on the other side of your canvas. Maybe not as strong, but it's going to show up. Now, that means any of your inks. You can see where I painted on here with the gesso, and really you can't see that through the other side. Okay, but I'm talking about any of these inks that we saturate our canvas with, it's going to go through to the other side. Now, when I'm working with canvas, I find if I'm trying to get a nice even saturation, that it works best if the canvas is wet. Now, as you can see here, I forgot that technique, and I just took my distress stains and rubbed them on here, and that's why I've got these deep streaks of this dark on here, which, you know, we embrace our mistakes, and they become part of our canvas of what we're working on. However, I'm going to suggest that you learn from my mistakes, and we're going to wet our canvas before we start adding any colors. Now make sure that your craft mat is all nice and cleaned off from when we worked with the black, because we really don't want that seeping in, but if it does, it's all good. So for this piece, we're going to be working with the same things. We've got our mister bottle filled with water. We have our scattered straw re-inker mixture. We're not going to use the black. We have our spun sugar dried marigold mixture. And then we also wanted to use some brown distress stain is light. Well, we're going to spray that anyways. And then we're going to kind of take it and we're just going to crumple it all up. And then I want to take a little bit of the Sweet Whisper Radiant Rain Shimmer Mist, and I'm going to spray some of that on there. Okay. And then we've got some great colors going on here. Once again, what happens on the front is what happens on the back. And if this can be a little bit much for you, go ahead and run it under the kitchen sink. That's going to become my old fail-safe here. But there you have it. There's your newly created page. And then you're going to set that aside to dry. So this canvas page is going to take a little time to dry. And what I actually did was I baked mine in the oven at 200 degrees to kind of facilitate that process. But what I just wanted to show you is for this page, basically what I did, here are the two pages side by side. What I did was I took a piece of die cut paper, this beautiful Creative Imaginations die cut paper, and I laid it down on my canvas when it was dry, and I brayered over it with some black gesso, which it came through, and this then became my stencil. So, and once again, splotty is a good thing. I like it. It didn't come out all the way, and I absolutely love the effect. So I've gone over with you the watercolor paper. And then this was the reverse from when we sprayed our covers with our mask. Then we have the resist canvas here, which we, of course, have inked and everything. And then you can create this wonderful border by creating your own stencil using the Creative Imaginations die cut paper. And then on the back side of this, basically what I did to it was I cut a rectangle of burlap, and then cut it off and stuck it on here with multi-medium. But also, I don't know if you can see this in here. You can see this kind of really cool verbiage that's going up and down here. And basically the way that I achieved that was by Tim Holtz Ideology tissue wrap. So I tore off a piece of it, lathered on some multi-medium onto the canvas, and then laid that down. And I love the effect that's on here. Also, I'm not sure that you can actually really see this, but I used a little bit of molding paste with my stencils and took my palette knife and just kind of ran it over top of the stencil with the molding paste, and it just adds one more dimension. And then lastly, what we have is, once again, using and committing to the black and the stencil. And here it is on the natural canvas page. And here it is on paper. So we've done it on the resist, I did it on regular paper, and then I also did it on the natural canvas. So ladies, I just cannot wait to see what you create with this absolutely fabulous kit that is coming this month. All I know is that I finally had to say, Lynn, step away from the kit, because I just couldn't stop creating with it. So ladies, I look forward to seeing your creations, and have a wonderful blog hop.